All right, today I'm gonna talk about something people ask me a lot about. I'm gonna talk about how some of my friends make $1 million a day. So 7 or so secrets that I've learned from a whole bunch of crazy experiments. So these are experiments that I've run as an entrepreneur and some of my friends who I was actually off visiting one this weekend who makes an incredible amount of money. And so, like the saying goes, it's not just about what you know, it's about who you know. So I'm gonna share, a lot of these videos I share things from my own experience, but I don't wanna share just being with my friend this weekend made me share, I'm gonna share a video on, and it's not just that one friend, I have quite a few friends. I have friends that are completely broke. I don't judge my friends by how much income they make, but I also have friends that are way, at the highest levels, and it's like I talk about in my TEDx talk, the law of 33%. You wanna surround yourself with people that are learning from you. You want to surround yourself with people who are on your level, but 33% of people should be way ahead of you, and you learn from them. So I'm gonna share a handful of those things. So number one, how I've seen people make $1 million a day and even more. And if you're watching this, you might not need to make $1 million a day. A lot of people are just happy to be a millionaire one time in their life, but I always say, learn from the best. And you can always ratchet it back to learn from, whatever level you want to be on. So the first kind of thing, I call it the Las Vegas nightclub trick. Okay? So this is basically, if you go to like Las Vegas, and I used to, when I was first starting out, I got in the nightclub business and I saw this firsthand. So what Las Vegas does, there's clubs right now, if you go to Las Vegas, that are literally making more than $1 million a night. If you look at some of the big ones, whether it be, at some of the Wynn properties like Encore and all these hotels have these clubs inside them, and they're doing crazy numbers, $1 million a night. And how do they do it? It's a principle you may have heard before, it's the value add. So one of my mentors, Joel Salatin, who really taught me about the principle of value add, he said, look, the main cost in business is the acquisition of a customer. And a new customer is very expensive. So whatever your idea is, you're gonna have to get people to use it. Whether it's an app, a hotel, a diet product, whatever it might be that you're interested in, consulting service, you have to acquire customers. And customers are the most expensive things to get. So what you have to do, what an amateur person does, somebody who is just maybe making $1 million a year or less than that in their business or venture, they don't understand how someone like a Las Vegas nightclub value adds. So for example, at a nightclub, let's just say a big nightclub, boom, you got 1,000 people waiting outside, boom, 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 boom. If you've ever been in a nightclub in Vegas, they have huge lines. So you're here, you're waiting. Now, there's a minimum and maximum viable amount of people that can be inside this club. If there's only 2 people, they're gonna shut down the club. But ideally, and most of the time, they're gonna get, let's just say 1,000 people to pick random numbers. So let's say you're charging at the front door $100 to get in. Say there's a cover charge. Not all clubs now have, New York, different West Coast here, back here in Hollywood, most clubs don't have cover charges. New York is still, and other parts of the world, doing cover charges. But let's just say, for the sake of this conversation, $100 to get in. Okay, if 1,000 people come in at $100, you're capped. This thing can only make you $100,000 that night. That's simple math. So you'll never hit $1 million in one night. So what do the Las Vegas nightclubs do? And any smart business, whether it be a nightclub or a website that my friends have, you have to value add. So think of what a nightclub will do. They'll section off that section right there. You see this in LA nightclubs, down here in Hollywood, some of the biggest ones. They'll take, boom, divide it up into tables. Each of those tables, I know a dude, there's a football player, these guys dropped, there's a true story in Vegas, you could Google it, a guy, a football player, I forget his name, he had for some reason a whole bunch of cash. He brought in literally like a chest, like a pirate's treasure chest full of 250 grand in cash. He brought that to his table and spent it all in one night. So if you don't understand value add, like a lot of newbies and amateurs to making money, they'll just cap out the room at 100 grand, 1,000 people paying $100. But these Vegas casinos and Hollywood casinos, boom, you add, now this section here made you 250 grand extra, just that one little table. And what do they have to do? They hire a couple pretty waitresses, they put sparklers, if you've ever been to Vegas, some champagne, boom, the value add, same square footage as an amateur nightclub owner. You see the same thing in restaurants. You can do this where you have high-end restaurants that are pull inside. There's a place in Beverly Hills called, I think it's Crustacean, one of the most prestigious restaurants in Beverly Hills. They got a whole area that's only reservation only. So again, the value add. Now, you might not be in the nightclub business, and I'm just giving you a quick one because I want to go through some of these just to give you an idea, get your brain churning. And this is really the things that I constantly remind myself. You know, you got to understand, whatever your idea is, you won't be profitable and you won't hit big numbers, whether it's $1 million a day or $1 million a year, if you only have one source of revenue per customer. You have to be able to take the customer in the funnel and you have to be able to go, boom, they're in, and what else am I going to sell them? And the best way to do that, some people call it an ascension model, like ascending versus descending. You want to have the price points go up. So always have, I had one of the first internet mentors I had, he said, Ty, always have a high-end package, because about 5 or 10% of people, they're used to spending more. They don't want to go into a restaurant or a nightclub and spend. It's like the way their brain works. Another word for this, by the way, is called holonic businesses. That's a more advanced term for those of you more advanced. A holonic business model is where you have businesses inside of businesses. This is a simpler word for you new people, value add, holonic for you advanced. So it's a business, you have a separate business center inside of the nightclub business center. So that's one of them. So another one, the power scaling principle. So number 2, you have to understand how to power scale. And you've probably heard people say this before, but I'll give you an example. One of my buddies he's not quite making $1 million a day, but he makes about $500,000 a day. So he's doing about 100 to 150 million a year. And we were talking, and what he did was he found one advertising source, okay? Other people, by the way, the more fancy word for this would be arbitrage. If you want to keep it simple, power scale. So what he did, he figured out an advertising source where he was spending, he told me he spent $1,000, and that advertising source made him $2,500 in one day. So he netted $1,500. His arbitrage, money in, money out, money in, as arbitrage kind of principle, $1,500 a day. So here's what most people, this is where my friend and my friends that I'm talking about today are completely different. What did he do different? Easy. Instead of getting excited at making $1,500 a day and going, boom, I can quit my job and just relax. That's $45,000 a month. That's a lot of money for most people. He said, no, I'm going to do power scaling. And there's a good book by Steven Johnson where good ideas come from. And there's a principle of negative power scaling. By the way, if you don't understand these things, you can also go downhill in your failure in life faster and faster and faster. That's negative quarter power scaling, they call it, or negative power scaling. I'm talking about positive power scaling. So once he figured this, instead of resting, he just opened up a second exact account and a third account, and he ended up with thousands of marketing accounts. Now, it's a little trickier how he did it because he had to do some complicated things, but I'm giving you, because you're not my friend, so you don't need to know exactly what he did because it won't apply to your situation. But the principle of not resting when you find a winner and doubling down. Going back to my Vegas analogy, boom, people in Vegas who win, you know what they do? They double down their hand if they got a winning hand. And so I know this sounds simple to some of you, but it's not what you know, it's what you do. And think about your life, how many times you had a winner and you didn't double, triple. My friend ended up opening up over 10,000 marketing accounts, each one making him $1,500. Now, actually, the more you open, he didn't quite make the same amount of money, but the principle applied, and he ended up he makes about 500 G's a day. Okay, he's been doing it for about 2 years. It still works, and it's amazing that not a lot of people copy him. I've seen it. I can tell you, if you think this won't work, I can tell you, not only my friends have used this, but I've used this. You know, I've used this. back since 2001 when I started doing internet stuff and business, not just internet, but business in general. And so that's the second principle. There's 7 of them. I don't think I'm going to get to all these because I want to keep this a short video. By the way, I'm going to pop up a little button. I'm going to do a free talk online. You can listen in on your phone, and I'm going to go in depth because these two I didn't have. These videos, I'm trying to do them somewhat not too long because sometimes people are busy. I know you might be busy. So if you want to know more, click the link below. It's completely free. It'll take you to my website where you can just put in your email and watch the whole talk. I'm gonna go through all 7 of these. Trust me, they are badass. They work. And these aren't, like I said, these aren't things just from a textbook. I love to read books and all that, but these are hard earned in the trenches. I've learned them myself, and I've watched my mentors and now my close buddies using them all the time. So I'm gonna share with you. Click the link. It might be above here, it might be below. I forget where we're gonna have it, but I'll do seven things that I've learned from all kinds of crazy experiments on how people make $1 million a day. You can use this to make, $1,000 a day if that's your goal, or $100 a day. Most people, when I was completely broke, sleeping on a couch, the idea of just making an extra $100 a day or $500 a month, thrilled me. I just wanted to get off the couch, get a better place to sleep. Didn't have a car, I got a Mitsubishi Galant, I remember. Now people see me in, Lambos and Ferraris and Maseratis. Back then couldn't even afford a Galant. So I made an extra $300 a month. That gave me a car, gave me a little freedom. So wherever you are, these principles will work. So the third one, so this non-egalitarian filtering. Now, I've kind of stolen, if you know what egalitarian means, I'm kind of stretching the definition. I know that. But most people, except the wealthiest friends that I have, okay? The wealthiest mentors, they're very egalitarian in who they learn. So if I'm like, what books are you reading? They'll be like, I'm reading a little bit. This guy made some money, and this guy, and that's okay. But remember now, the barrier is very low for writing a book. Like anybody, I know people writing books. I'm like, I wouldn't listen to them. I wouldn't get direction to the movie theater from these people, and definitely wouldn't get the advice on how to make $1 million a day. So this is a mental one. I find the way that our brain has worked, if you saw, I just did an interview with Richard Dawkins. He's a professor at Oxford. He was, voted the #1 intellectual, the smartest person in the world, I think in 2013 or something. You may or may not agree with that, but he's a sharp guy. And he was saying the way that our brains work, and you'll see how this applies to making money. The way your brain works is all of us come from smaller villages. What I mean by that is your great-great-great-grandparents did not live in a big city. I'm here, this is Hollywood, LA's out there, about 13 million people in the greater metropolitan area. If you live in Tokyo, if you live in London, you're living in massive metropolitan areas. But all of us, not so long ago, my grandma was born in 1918. At that time, I read an interesting statistic. At that time, 90% of the world lived on farms or in small villages. Okay? Nowadays, in 2000, the turn of the century, it flipped. 90% of people live in big cities and 10% live in small villages or farms or small towns. So what does that mean? It means you and I inherited an adaptation in our brains. Dr. David Buss talks about this. Richard Dawkins, Dr. Dawkins talks about this, that our brains in a small village, our brains are adapted. You probably know everybody, so you can trust, that person, you see their little business, you're like, that person's trustworthy. And now what happens in the world, and especially when it comes to the subject of making money, is very easy for people to just talk, but never have done. That's why I say a lot of my things that I talk about, I love books, but I always test them and run my own experiments. So the question for you is, are you non-egalitarian, meaning you are just like what I recommend, you realize most people don't know what the hell they're talking about. Literally, I have friends, I don't ask them one piece of advice. If I'm buying a piece of real estate, if I'm buying a business, even my best friends that know nothing about money, I don't ask them anything. I talk to them about, women, movies, blah, blah, vacation, cars, but I don't, and you got to get like that. It doesn't mean you're arrogant or anything. one thing Richard Dawkins told me on this call, I put it up on it's on my podcast, or actually on my YouTube channel. I asked him the best piece of advice he ever got as one of the top scientists in the world. He said, only believe with evidence. So, when I do these talks, I always back them up. Like I said, when I was talking about the Las Vegas principle, you don't believe me? Go to Vegas, see it with your eyes. Google revenue of top Las Vegas nightclubs, and then reverse engineer how they're making it. It's not rocket science, it's the value add. Power scaling. Look at it. Look at how Facebook Mark Zuckerberg perfected Facebook right there at his local university first. He didn't try to power scale. He started just with his university. Then you had to have an email address from a college to get in. So then he kept it small. But once he hit the formula, boom, power scaled. And now Facebook has over 1 billion people. So like I said, you must believe with evidence. So I'll talk more on that. There's 4 other things. How long have I gone so far?
About 20.
Yeah, so I'm going to keep this. I don't want to go too long here. So click the link. I'm going to go through these 3 in depth, but I got the 4 other ones are pretty insane on how well they work, but I would need another. I don't want to make this an hour long. So click the link down here. It'll take you to my website. It's free. It's just a free online talk. You can watch it on your phone. You can watch it on your computer. You can watch it in the car. You can listen to it, and just do it. And you can ask me questions. You can chat and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. I've been testing these live talks out, and it gives me enough time to really explain, and I can respond. And you can get your questions answered also personally in chat. So click that link, and remember, you must value add with holonic business models, okay? Number 2, you must power scale and double down on the things that work, which implies you're doing quite a bit of testing, which is a whole nother conversation of the testing framework you should adopt. And then 3rd, you gotta be non-egalitarian. Don't be democratic. Don't go everybody gets a vote to contribute to your brain. Believe with evidence. In my best advice I ever got my family, because I didn't grow up with any money. My dad had no money. I grew up with a single mom. I didn't really see my dad till I was a lot older. There's one person in my family, one of my uncles, knew a little bit about making money. He never made big money, but I listened a little more to him because he had evidence. He knew a little bit more what he was talking about, So sometimes people are like, why do you put Ferraris and Lamborghinis in your car? I'm like, well, because it helps people know that, I've maybe done a few experiments in my life that have made some money. So I don't know everything. That's why actually this talk I want to share with you with what I've learned, some of my friends that know a lot more about me, and I'll also explain some of the things I've learned too. So click the link, learn what my friends know that make $1 million a day, how you can apply it too to your life, whether it's to make an extra $100 a month or an extra, $1 million a month, whatever your number is, these principles work, okay? So click the link, and I will see you on my talk, okay? Talk to you soon.